Hello and welcome to my talk. Really happy that I have the opportunity to talk about this very important topic today, and this is how to ally, so including people with disabilities and chronic illnesses. What does that mean in our tech world? So first, a bit about me. My name is Franziska Hauck. I'm a so-called people lead, which basically is a person who manages agile IT teams from a coaching and disciplinary perspective, but not from a technical perspective. So we have a dual leadership system where I manage teams in collaboration with the tech lead. I provide coaching, I provide development, I do the appraisal process and so forth. On the side, I'm also a freelance consultant, most of the time in the developer relations, but also community strategy and communications. And I'm also a co-organizer of the accessibility meetup in Berlin, which I have become in December. This was also motivated by me talking about this topic and making sure that people out there have the opportunity to learn about different aspects of accessibility. And you can find me on Twitter under the handle _Franzi, so do not hesitate to tweet, follow. I talk a lot about chronic illness and disability advocacy. And yeah, so really looking forward to giving you a bit more insight on that topic. Currently, you can find me knee-deep in statistics on Developer Insights, which is basically came out of a freelance project. So if you have any questions on developers, what they do, what the job market is, gender ratio, and so forth, happy to help you with those stats. So why am I talking about all like this topic as a whole? I might look healthy, but I'm actually not. Because in 2004, when I was about 17, 18 years of age, my jaw started cracking, my jaw joints, and I had problems biting food. Went to an odyssey of doctors. We didn't know what it was. Everyone was like, you are so young. Why do you have this problem? You shouldn't have any problems with your joints. And then in 2005, turns out, funnily enough, that I have a genetic illness called factor V resistance, which is it's genetic, so it cannot be changed. It can also not be cured. And it also causes a lot of other things, which one of them is arthrosis. And I started having it in my jaw joints due to a trauma that I had from a previous operation. So factor V resistance is not very well researched. It's basically a genetic disorder that where the enzyme in your blood that should control the fifth blood clotting factor is basically out of order. So it doesn't really work well. And that brings a whole host of challenges with it. The list is probably even longer, but some of the things that I experience is low blood circulation. I did have some blood clots which were not a proper thrombosis or haven't been a proper thrombosis yet, but who knows, it might still happen. I have a high propensity for heart attacks and for strokes, which when you were told this at 18 years of age is quite difficult to digest at that point. I also have things like high propensity for miscarriage, and yes, I'm talking about that very openly because why should I feel ashamed about this? This is something that a lot of women with factor V resistance go through, have to deal with, and that's one of the reasons why I, for myself, decided I will not have any kids, because the road to pregnancy, to successful pregnancy, would be very challenging. I also have a 5 to 10 times higher feeling of pain, which science cannot really explain at this point, but basically anything that's related to blood and anything that's related to pain is like super painful. I feel things much longer than other people do. I have cold limbs, and often I also have a feeling of lethargy and low energy levels, which not a lot of people know about me because I feel appear very energetic, but I feel like having my illness actually propels me forward. It actually motivates me because it gives you something to fight for, to research and so forth. So I do get a lot of strength out of it as well. And as I said, factor V resistance is not researched. There is not really a cure. It affects mostly 5% of the Caucasian population. People of other descents don't really have it. It affects primarily thin women, at least the symptoms, which, yeah, I am. And there is a wide symptom spectrum, and I'm at the very sharp end, let's say. Over the years, 2016, 2017, I was getting by. Obviously, I cannot eat a lot of the things with arthrosis in my jaw joints. I had to kind of relearn how to talk so that I was able to articulate myself. I might at some point arrive at a destination where I cannot talk anymore. We will see. But for now, it was all right. And if all of that wasn't enough, in 2017, I started having massive problems with digestion mainly. I lost 15 kilos overall, and I was thin already. And to this day, we haven't really found out what it is. And it's a big, big struggle. I have problems every single day, every time I wake up. And it just makes a lot of things, especially food intolerances, make life really, really challenging when you cannot eat things and then you have symptoms afterwards. It's just, especially when I was in Devra and I was traveling a lot, that obviously was a challenge. So out of this perspective, I was motivated to talk about what can we do? What can people that are allies, that want to be allies, do to support people with disabilities and chronic illnesses? And first of all, we need to understand the what. What are we actually talking about? So we have the so-called visible handicap, right? So person wears sunglasses, they have a stick, so they sit in a wheelchair, so you can clearly see this person has a disability. Then there's often the non-visible handicap, and please bear in mind, a non-visible handicap does not have to be long-term. There can be temporary handicaps as well. Somebody had an operation, they have a motoric limitation due to that. You might not see it at first glance, but the person still struggles, and that's what makes it so tricky. Then there is this whole vast field of chronic illnesses, which most of the time you don't really see. With my chronic illnesses, they do manifest in visible ways, but you would have to know what they are to actually see them. If you're not an expert, you wouldn't actually see a lot of the things. So you see people walking down the street, they are your colleagues, they might have something, but you don't know because you don't see it. And then there is this other field of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is not per se a disability. It has been seen as such for a long time, but I wanted to include it here because people with neurodiversity often have different mannerisms that for a lot of people are challenging to understand, are not really that obvious. Most of the times we think about people on the autism spectrum, and we need to support all kinds of people with all different backgrounds, and that's why it's so important to talk about this as well. Fun fact, I will organize a meetup on neurodiversity coming up on June the 9th. We will have, among other people, a speaker from Microsoft who talks about his Asperger's syndrome. So it is important that people speak up and they are vocal about all of this. So when we look at supporting people with disabilities, historically, a lot of it has been designated as barrier-free. Everything needs to be barrier-free. That can be having ramps and elevators in a building, but that can also be web accessibility. So a person who has visual impairments, for example, can use a website. And that's all fine and dandy, and it's absolutely necessary to do that. But in actuality, barrier-free is only, let's say, the baseline of things that we can do to support people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. And that's why I want to talk about the how and what you can specifically do. So when we look at, again, sort of the mechanics, and something that piles onto that in a sense is, as I said, ramps, free of steps elevators, having subtitles if possible, providing tools for reading and understanding. So there are braille devices, lenses, there's audio commentary. A lot of the times, what a lot of companies also do is they get get a sign language interpreter. So, and fun fact also, they don't have to pay for that. There is support available for people at the workplace to get a sign language interpreter, for example, for big company meetings and all that. So if at any point you were hesitant about maybe hiring people that are hard of hearing, there's a lot of state support that you can already make use of. As I said, web accessibility, but this also in a way means, are your tools accessible to your colleagues? Can they use that if they are hard of hearing, if they have some sort of visual impairment, if they maybe have motoric disabilities? Think about it. Some tools require you to have good precision in clicking and maneuvering. Is that really possible? That's always a good question to ask yourself. Also, when you think about having events and get-togethers, sometimes it can be useful to do it at different times, to not always do it at the same time, because also, fun fact, people with chronic illnesses, especially degenerative chronic illnesses like mine, get tired throughout the day. So most of the time we have sort of a high at around 10, 11, 12, 1, and then afterwards it only sort of goes down. And especially when you have worked 6, 7, 8 hours a week, and a lot of us actually have full-time jobs and other things that we do, so it can be a bit challenging. Sometimes doing things on the weekend or doing a brunch or having a breakfast together could alleviate some of that. So just bear that in mind, that there are always different ways and means to do things. And what I always like is to have representation. I specifically quote speakers here, but it can be a speaker, it can be a team lead, it can be a person who's just out and living with that and showing other people that you can be a high performer, you can have that drive, and you. Oftentimes we picture people with disabilities and chronic illnesses as sort of the people that are sitting in the corner crying because of their suffering, and it's actually quite the other way around. We are very, very strong people, and we love seeing other people that are out that we can talk to, and that immediately shows us that there is representation and that we can feel included, and we can also attain these positions, places, and go there. So I talked about visible handicaps and non-visible illnesses or disabilities. How can you actually support people that where you are like, okay, I don't even see it. What am I supposed to do? You know, there is nothing mechanic that I can do. What I found is that spaces. We all need spaces for the body, but also for the mind. And that already covers even more than just supporting people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. It goes way beyond that. And that's a good thing, because at times, even people that feel super healthy might feel odd or might feel out of place. So you can almost already automatically include them there. So what works very, very well in, let's say, the event sphere is to have a quiet room. Sometimes this is designated as a medical room. Sometimes a prayer room also works, or works for that capacity. But having spaces where you can retreat. Think about it. Does your company really have 1 or 2 spaces where you can go throughout the day and just meditate and realign yourself? Probably not. It's because it's not really common to have that. But it really helps. It can be a very small room. You can go there, you can relax, you can breathe a little bit, and that already helps, as I said, hypersensitive people as well, introverted people, people that, you know, appear easily breakable. And also think about it. If you have a chronic illness, sometimes it might be necessary to give yourself a shot. I specifically think about diabetic people. It might be necessary to change a dressing. Do you want to do that publicly? Probably not. I, for once, did do that in a big lecture theater. I once gave myself a blood thinning shot in a 200-person lecture theater, and I didn't give a damn about that. But there are other people who are more sensitive about that. So having that space and having that withdrawal opportunity, that's really, really good. Also think about caretakers. A lot of times, even people that appear super, super healthy might need a caretaker. And that can be a human caretaker, but it could also be a support animal in a lot of ways. The best example probably would be a blind developer. There are not a lot of blind developers out there, but oftentimes they have dogs who guide them, who accompany them. And if you have a company that has a strict anti-dog policy, you already exclude candidates that are super awesome developers, but just happen to be blind. Because a lot of people, we are chronically ill, we are disabled, but we are not just that, right? And limiting yourself in that area already limits your candidate pool so much. I can tell you, especially in tech, there are a lot of people that have chronic illnesses, a lot of people that live with a neurodiversity, and not having that openness for whatever support you could give them already reduces your chances. What I also found really, really good is to ask how someone wants to be greeted. And again, this doesn't just touch people with chronic illnesses or disabilities, but it also goes into the realm of religion. A lot of Muslim or Orthodox Jewish or very conservative Christian women don't want to shake hands with men, and the other way around, right? I had a man once refuse me. But in my case, it's a bit more complicated. And I say this specifically from the point of view that having arthrosis in your jaw joints, your whole head sometimes cracks. And when somebody goes up to you and they pull you into a bear hug, that's not comfortable. I had that before I gave a talk, and I was given that talk in pain because that person hugged me too strongly. So just be careful, be mindful. People might have sensitive joints, might have sensitive limbs, whatever. If you can do the handshake, great. If you can do the high five, great. But there's also always the elbow bump, which means bumping literally the elbows towards each other, or simply just doing this. Now in these Corona times, it actually makes a lot of sense not to touch each other. And we can be mindful about that in this way as well. And also what hasn't really been looked at a lot is sitting opportunities. Hard chairs for me are a big, big challenge. When I sit down for longer on a hard chair, I get intense hip pain, intense. It's brutal. And I get really, really stiff, and it's just, yeah, if I see that, I'm already out of the door. So plushy chairs can be a solution to that. Just for all kinds of people who have back issues, hip issues, and believe you me, every organization, every initiative, every group has so many people in there with back issues. And also think about, how do people contact each other? How do people talk to each other? Are there opportunities on different levels, right? If you have a person who's in a wheelchair and they are down here and the person is up there, that's also not really good. So think about how people interact and how you can support that with really simple measures, such as providing seating opportunities in areas where people get together, maybe even a kitchen, and having different ways of seating opportunities as well. Then think about it. A lot of people have migraines, and there are people that have epilepsy as well. Very, very strong, harsh lights can be super intense. So even that can be looked at, can be assessed. I'm not saying go to your building and change everything, because sometimes you won't even have the opportunity because there is conservation as well and so forth. But sometimes it can help to just sit a person somewhere else and make sure that they are not in that beam of light. I once talked to a lady when I gave this talk at a meetup who afterwards said, I have a colleague who I work very closely with, but she needs to sit right next to the window because of her eyes, and I need to sit at another place where I don't have that strong light. And it makes cooperation, at least physically, with each other very challenging. But Corona changed a lot of things. We are in different places, we are remote. Enable people with the right tooling to get together, to work together, and then you can have them sit separately but still be a unit, at least emotionally and mentally. Breaks is very good. Also, again, think about diabetic people, people that need to eat intermittently. Be mindful, maybe eating at your desk, there could be a good explanation for that, right? I know a lot of companies have policies where they're like, no, desk has to be kept super clean and so forth, but you never know a person's story. Always think about what you can do and how you can empathize with them. And maybe it sometimes even just helps asking. And then you give the person the opportunity to give you insight into what they are dealing with. Again, food options generally. What I found is that especially people with food intolerances and allergies. Intolerance and allergy, by the way, is a different thing. When we go to events or when we have company food provided, there's a lot of mixing and matching, like a lot of boxed stuff, which is quite fine if you're super healthy. But if you have very specific intolerances, and there are a lot out there, it's really challenging to find something that you can eat, just one thing. So the less you mix things and the more you box things up individually, the better it is, because people then can pick and choose. And one of my best, superstar recommendations of all times is having a pseudo-allergenic diet or having a pseudo-allergenic offer, because that specific way of eating already covers a lot of allergens, and you are very, very well off with that kind of choice. Then again, think about activities. Activities should be inclusive. Think about it. When you go to a company's websites and there are, and they went mountain climbing, that's great for you, buddy, but I will be deterred to apply, because if you go to activities which are physically challenging, this is not my place. If I'm fit, if I have a good day, wonderful, I can do that, but I will still watch the bags, because that is a bit too much for me to do. And there are a lot of other people that don't necessarily have a chronic illness or disability that also are deterred by that, right? I specifically had a company event where that was the case, and a lot of people were discouraged to participate. So have two alternative activities that people can partake of. Do knitting, do crocheting, something like that. Coloring. There are so many opportunities and alternatives that you can do, and you can still have a group feeling. Or do something that can be done by everyone. That's always a very good option. But the most important thing, the mechanics, as I said, is easy. Looking at some of the screws and things you can turn, that's fine. But the most important thing is that we change our language and with it our mindset. And just to give you some examples of what I hear on a daily basis, I wanted to give you some quotes that I heard at the workplace. One of my managers told me, "To me, you're normal. I don't see your disability." This comes from a very good place, right? He wanted to signal that, it doesn't matter to me. But what I heard is, you are not normal. You are weird. You are odd. And this person also categorized me. So he put me into a box where I felt uncomfortable with. If I categorize myself, that's fine and dandy. If somebody else does it, how do they know my story? How do they know if I actually fit this box? Actually, I'm one of those people, if you call me normal, I will be insulted because I actually like being different. So he didn't know about that, but he also didn't inquire about that. So seemingly innocent remarks can be hurtful to some people. And in some cases, it might be better just to not phrase it then and just to keep that thought to yourself until you have a better understanding of where that person is coming from. And again, asking usually helps. Talking, getting to know the person, knowing about their disability, but knowing also a lot of the facets that they have apart from that disability. Everybody needs to recover and to regenerate. We all need our time. This was also one of my favorites. Yes, I know that there are people with kids, 5 kids, 6 kids, they are exhausted. There are people that take care of elderly parents and so forth. But it's not about competition. It's not about, oh, this person needs to have a larger or longer regeneration time and this person doesn't and this person is healthy. It's not about that. It's especially when we look into the realm of diversity, there are a lot of intersectionalities, right? So just because I need to have more recovery time on my couch at home, where I'm basically dead to the world, just to be able sort of to have my baseline functionalities, does not mean that I do not acknowledge someone else's struggle or strive to be performing and to be functioning. It just means that why don't we all support each other? I support the parents. I have a policy. I don't have any kids, so I often don't take holidays around the public holidays, so the parents can do it. So I support parents this way. In turn, parents, for example, can support me by enabling me to have holidays at a time when I need them because my body tells me to take holidays and so forth. So it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. Others surely have it worse. One of the classics. Yes, I know that there are people out there who are dying of cancer. We have a corona crisis currently and people are dying of COVID. And I know all of that. I know it. But I'm also not one to go on a stage like now and be like, oh, I have it so bad. I have it so bad. No, it's not about that. Especially at events where I meet people with disabilities and chronic illnesses, it's like a bit, and I'm saying this very sarcastically, it's a bit like women at tech conferences, right? When you spot another woman, you see each other across the room and you're instantly drawn to each other. And it's a bit like that with people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. We get each other, we understand each other, we understand each of our struggles. And it's not about you are worse and I am better off. We do that sarcastically, yes, but you have to have humor, otherwise it wouldn't be good. But I do acknowledge that. And every day I get up and I'm thankful. I actually have this kind of mantra in my head where every day I'm like, I can still walk. They projected that right about this time in my mid-30s, I might have to have a hip replacement, which thankfully, because of the sports that I do, I don't have to have. And so it's not about that. It's acknowledging and supporting what you know and what you can change. Are you sure it's not psychosomatic? Yes, I'm actually very sure. I was diagnosed at, I wouldn't say very early age, but I was diagnosed in my teens. And I can very well distinguish between something that is in my head and something that is physically in my head, right? this is usually a sentence that people resort to when they want to help, but they cannot think of anything. And this is interesting because we all want to help, right? We all have this helper syndrome where we want to say consoling things. And at some point we realize, oh my God, I can't even help this person because their story is maybe even super, super tragic. But it does not matter. It's not on you to categorize or to take on that pain or suffering. It's at this point, listening is good, and then empathizing is also good, but that's basically where you everything you can actually do, and then emotional support, that's what you can do. But asking that question usually puts people on the spot a lot. And believe us, we have researched, we have studied, we have exchanged. If we are not experts in our field and how our body works, who else would be? We are very smart people, as are you. So trust people with disabilities and chronic illnesses that it's not in their head. Actually, scientific shows that it's a very, very tiny percentage of people that pretend to have illnesses. It's very, very tiny. You just need to eat more. Everything will be fine then. Yes, I did that. I tried gaining weight, but the fun fact is, with me being so messed up because of the antibiotics and antibiotics that were given to me, it just doesn't work anymore. So even if I wanted to, I mess myself up only more and I don't gain weight. So this kind of, let's say, suggestion or advice sounds a bit flat if you haven't gone through what I have gone through. And again, it shows that it comes from a good place. People want to help, they want to provide consolation, and that's fine and dandy. But if you haven't experienced what I have experienced, sometimes it's better not just to even comment on that and just let things be as they are. But you were able to walk the stairs yesterday. Yes, yesterday was a good day. It was sunny, my joints were warm, and I was super, super agile. Today it might be raining, so my joints ache. It could be that. People with, especially with degenerative chronic illnesses, have good days and have bad days. So don't wonder if a person can do one thing on one day and another thing on another day. I know it's super confusing. It's really, really mind-blowing sometimes, but it also has to do with the very nature of our states. If you have a person who has a specific disability that won't change for 50 years, then that's that. That's an easy concept to grasp. But if you don't have that, if you have a chronic illness that's really, really wavy, it's different. But again, it all depends on how you perceive people with that and how you support people with that. If you just accept and embrace people as they are and don't question the fact that, oh, yesterday they could that and today they can't, are they lying to me? No, we're not. It's just the way our bodies are made. And also, a really, really old classic, you poor thing. I never ever want to hear that again. As a person with a chronic illness that's not well researched, I feel like it has empowered me in so many other areas because I research, I take hard decisions every single day. I have to. So these are all amazingly good managerial capabilities. I'm super self-confident. I'm outspoken because of this, not only because of this, but partially because of this. So the last thing in this world I am is a poor thing. I'd rather see myself as a fighter and as someone who takes initiative. And that's why in the beginning I called my chronic illness factor 5 resistance, because there is another name out there which is called factor 5 Leiden, which is connected to the city, but not the suffering as in German. But I refrain from doing that because I feel like categorizing myself with suffering is not something that I do. I fight and I pick up the thread and I go on. So again, it comes out of this perspective of compassion, of showing that you are with this person, but it's never a good thing to say. So why did I quote all of these things? I just want to make sure that you understand and question yourself. Some of the comments that in the discussion you've had with people that have disabilities or chronic illnesses, could that actually be ableist? Ableism is basically the discrimination and prejudice against people with disabilities or people who are perceived to have disabilities. I'm not saying people are generally ableist. I'm saying that sometimes what they voice can sound like it. People are, and that's a basic assumption that I always work with, people are good and people want to be good. People want to help. And that's amazing. You cannot imagine some of the support that I've gotten, which I probably should have highlighted here as well. But sometimes just thinking about it and making yourself aware of the fact that what you say and how you say it can already change other people's outlook on you, and it can change your whole experience, and also your source of power in that situation. Because if there is maybe an emergency situation or something else, you can take a lot of power out of just staying calm and being, cool in that situation. So just to summarize, some of the general things that I would advise you to do, that I leave you with as some of the thoughts that I have from my perspective, is that don't assume that everybody can eat, do, or practice everything. If we look around in our society, and especially interestingly in tech, right? In tech, we always celebrate this, this person has coded throughout the night, blah, blah. We don't always celebrate it. I'm saying that sarcastically, but not everybody can always do what a so-called normal person can do. Just by shifting your mindset, your perspective to a state where you see that, okay, the normal is not the normal, but let's first of all think, can everybody participate? Is everything accessible? That already changes a lot. And you already start processes like introducing barrier-free concepts and incorporating all people with all their different backgrounds. Don't reduce people to their disability and their disability only. That one is kind of obvious. And when I gave the talk at the Developer Student Club Munich, one of the questions that I got was, I met a lady who's in a wheelchair. Can I ask what she has? And I was like, yeah, sure you can, but why would you? I mean, when you meet that person, it's just a person that happens to sit in a wheelchair. Great, this is something you visually notice about them. But the person is so much more than just the wheelchair. There are so many facets to that person. Maybe that person is cheeky or loud or outspoken, or that person is shy, who knows? But get to know people first. And then after a while, if they trust you, if there's a good relationship, if there has been good exchange, you can ask. But again, maybe people won't give you an answer or don't want to give you an answer. But just associating people with that visible disability would not be a good thing. At the same time, and that's a tricky one, don't negate their disability. Especially when people are very vocal about what they need to thrive, follow their advice. A lot of us have to be selfish in a lot of ways and clearly articulate, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that, or I can do this, but I will need this and that kind of support. So just, accepting that, embracing that, seeing what you can do, even if it's not a perfect solution, guess what? You will be my friend for life, because I already know that, oh my God, this person supports me, they are there for me, they accept me. And those are 10 brownie points. If somebody explains what they live with, if they say, okay, I have this and that, don't overrule them or generalize. As I said, we have done immense research in that area, immense research. I'm probably one of those people who knows more about factor V resistance than some of the doctors do. And that is basically a life's work. And that makes us, in a way, scientists, researchers, decision makers. And if I then get quotes like, oh, have you tried this and that? And I say yes. And then this person, oh, but have you tried this and that? And I say yes, it gets tiring after 5 sentences. So if you have heard of some innovative treatment, then I'll probably be thankful for you telling me that. But other than that, I probably have tried everything, read everything, done everything. And it just helps to, just trust people with chronic illnesses and disabilities, to know and to give them that respect, to acknowledge them as experts in their specific field. It's also always good to remember, but not making a fuss. One of the things that are very characteristic to me is that I like, it's challenging for me to talk to the right-hand side. It's easier to talk to the left-hand side. So people who are very close to me, they automatically sit on this side, and I go always to places where I can talk like this or straight. And the less they make a fuss out of it, the better. It's normal. Franziska has this, and it's her reality. It's her normal. And this is for a lot of people really challenging to accept that we have different realities in life. I have my reality, you have yours, but it doesn't matter. I can support you, you can support me, and that's great, that's perfect. But not pulling it out of proportion, not making sort of a big deal out of it. That's the genius way to go for it. Just do it quietly, easily. I remember you want to go this way because of this and that. Just do it, everything's fine. And then to summarize, I said ask and be open and communicate. This is true and not true at the same time, because I'm a person, I'm very open. I speak to you about all of my chronic illnesses. When a future employer could see that and could be like, oh no, I'm not going to hire chronically ill people. It's a challenge, right? But I feel like, especially with the advocacy that I do, why should I be quiet about something? I'm not ashamed of that. But other people are very, very private. They don't want to talk about it, maybe because they have had really, really bad experiences. Think about it, even back in primary school, a lot of the taunts that we used were related to disability. And it's just horrible to think about, right? So some people just don't want to talk about it. And they might do things that are difficult for you to understand. But again, if you embrace them, if you just accept it as it is, not categorize people as weird or their mannerisms as weird, that already gets you 5, 6, 7 steps ahead, and it makes for a much, much more inclusive atmosphere. And then maybe after a while, if people trust you, if you have established a relationship, maybe they'll tell you. I've had experiences like that where after a while they were like, oh, because you talk so openly about it, I'm not afraid sharing with you because I feel like I can trust you in this. So trust is key in any kind of relationship. So to summarize again, middle ground is always the best choice. Not choosing one extreme or the other extreme, the golden middle path, right? And people are people. That's the number one thing, with all their quirks, all their characteristics. If you have nothing to say, that's all right. Sometimes just listening is enough. A lot of times I get this question of, but Franziska, what if somebody tells me like something tragic and I cannot say anything? Then I'm like, don't. Just be like, if you want to talk more about it, I'm here. Or I'm listening. You can even just say, I'm listening to you. You don't have to console people if there are no words for things that are tragic. It doesn't matter. But this open ear, just being present, being mindful, that is the most important step, and that beats any barrier-free measures every day. So just to give you and leave you with some thoughts on this and what you can do to enable other people. I've mentioned it a couple of times. People with disabilities and chronic illnesses, we want to be high performers, and we can be high performers. Maybe not in a basketball team, maybe not traveling all the time, but we are high performers. And we have all of the characteristics you would want a decision maker to have. We have all the things that we bring to the table. We have high empathy, high tolerance. We're often very, very humorous. So make use of that, right? And if you create working conditions, as I said, barrier-free environment, but also in our minds, a barrier-free environment in our minds, and acceptance that comes through that, then we will surprise you. We will thrive. We will create and give you results that you probably didn't even imagine. And supporting people with disabilities and chronic illnesses without putting them on the spot, as I said, not making a big deal out of it. If the sign language interpreter comes in and that person just starts interpreting and nobody makes a big deal out of that, great, wonderful. You have supported your employee, you have made sure that they can follow whatever is going on in the discussion, maybe the quarter numbers presentation, whatever, and they will thrive and they will be like, yes, I'm invested, I'm emotionally loyal and invested in this. And one of the things that I can highly advise you to do, which I have had very, very good experiences with, is writing a so-called people manual. A people manual is basically can be a 1-pager, can be a 5 or 6-pager, where people talk about things that they need to thrive, for example, in the workplace, where they describe some of their characteristics, where they can be open about some of the mannerisms they have. Think about it. Have you had that colleague who always, only writes email but never chats, and the other way around? A lot of explanation can be found in those people manuals, and just reading that already create so much more understanding for the other person where they are coming from, and have everybody write it, not just the people that have different mannerisms or chronic illness or disability. It can help immensely, and it can help create this culture of inclusiveness at your company that otherwise you might not have, because people simply lack understanding for each other. Once we have the chance to give people an insight into our motivations and why we do things the way we do, there is often this understanding and this aha moment where they say, oh, great, yeah, I never thought about that. And that, as I said, I've had really, really good experiences with that. I tried it out several times already. I might do it with my teams in the future. It's really, really beneficial. So in summary, again, just ask. I am very open. You can reach me on Twitter, you can reach me on LinkedIn, you can reach me on any kind of social channel that is out there probably. If you have any kind of questions, there is probably no time where I will not answer any question. I also do a lot of research so that I have answers to questions on things, on matters that do not personally or individually pertain to me. As I said, wheelchair using and some other aspects. So generally, I try to stay up to date, and don't be afraid, reach out. I'd be happy to help. But most importantly, and that's the crucial thing of it all, thank you for your understanding, your embracing, your tolerance, and for all the things that you are doing. Thank you for being an ally, and thank you for being my ally. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your very informative talk. And yeah, as a person who has also chronic illnesses, I want to thank you for your voice. I got one question. People manuals, are there any examples to look at?
Yes, I do actually have examples. I have my example basically. I can, if you're really interested in that, don't hesitate to reach out and I can share my example with you afterwards. It's just something that I wouldn't feel super comfortable sharing with the whole public, but on one-on-one, I'd be happy to give you some details. And I also have an outline of the draft that I have set up, so I can share that also with the person.
Okay, thank you. And I will... No, there aren't any questions left.
Rebecca, just as an addition, experience shows that with my talks, people leave with a lot of mental processing afterwards. If there are any questions afterwards, reach out. We can talk through that one-on-one. I'd be happy to support you in any shape or form. And also, if you want to know what you can specifically do in your individual situation, there are always adaptations, obviously. And again, I'd be happy to help.